Hello and welcome to EEXSport Talk. I am your host, Enyadike Jr., joined here by legendary sports analyst and businessman, Emeka Enyadike, my brother, and renowned FIFA referee and one of the most respected officials on the African continent, the hanging judge himself, Dr. Errol Sweeney. Dad, Doc, it is great to see both of you.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Doc.
You too, Emeka.
Now, Doc, let's start broad. AFCON 25, the quarterfinals. This tournament is always very emotional and unforgiving, tense, especially for the referees. You know African football inside and out. You were also responsible for several referees being appointed in the PSL here in South Africa. Let's look at specifically the Egypt versus South Africa. I'd like to get your overall assessment of the officiating in that match.
Yeah, well, I did watch that game fully, and I watched the entire match, and I thought the referee actually had a very good game. Now, there are lots of complaints about him, lots of people saying that the decisions he gave were wrong, etc., etc. The penalty that he gave to Egypt was 100% correct, and the one that he did not give to South Africa was also 100% correct. Now, teams can be very fickle and very, petty when they want to, because decisions go for them. Yeah, absolutely. They're loving it. When it goes against them, even though it's still correct, they don't like it. In the incident with Mohamed Salah of Egypt and the way that he was, the hand was put in his face, that amounts to violent conduct. And it's a direct free kick. So if that incident had happened outside the penalty area, it would have been a direct free kick. There are two kinds of free kicks under the laws of the game. One's direct free kick and one is indirect free kick. Just to add a little bit there, an indirect free kick means that you cannot score directly. If the ball goes into the net from an indirect free kick without touching anybody else, the goal is disallowed. It has to be touched or played by another player. Unlike a direct free kick, where you can score from a direct free kick. Now, just to differentiate again, a direct free kick outside the penalty area is a penalty kick inside the area. There's no watering down of it. There's no saying, oh, well, maybe it wasn't, or maybe it was this. And people will come up with all kinds of excuses, especially when it goes against their team. In this instance, the referee was 100% correct. It amounted to violent conduct. If anybody puts their hand in another person's face, that's assault, effectively. And in this instance, that's what it was. And the referee, after some delay and looking at VAR and so on, decided that it was a direct free kick. It was inside the penalty area, and therefore it was a penalty kick.
You mentioned VAR. So we're going to talk about that because this tournament had some huge refereeing moments. Big calls, VAR interventions like the one you mentioned, and a lot of debates on social media. How do you think the standard of officiating at the AFCON, and I guess maybe in African football in general, also based on your experience and what your insight, how does the standard of officiating here compared to tournaments like the Euros, Copa America, even the FIFA World Cup itself? And has it genuinely helped clarity, or is it simply change the type of controversy that we?
Well, you see, VAR is a two sides of the coin issue. When it goes for you, it's great. We love it. And when it goes against you, no, you don't like it. Just last year, the English Premier League teams, of which there are 20 teams in the Premier League, there was a vote went around the teams to ask them, did they want to continue with VAR or did they want to scrap it? It was proposed by a Premier League team called Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they proposed it. They were the only ones to vote in favor of it. The other 19 teams voted against it. In other words, they wanted it retained. But you see, again, they want it retained when it suits them. And when it doesn't, then they don't like it either. So, you can't have it both ways.
On the table right now, I wonder how they can support that decision.
Yeah. They're talking, I believe, about bringing it into South Africa. But there's nothing wrong with VAR. It's very important to stress this. There's nothing wrong with VAR, video assistant referee. And people must look at the real issue. Video assistant referee. The issue there is assistant. It is just like the linesman, as we used to call them, or the guy now called assistant referees, like the fourth official, same thing. They are assistants to the referee. VAR is the video assistant referee. It's an assistance to the referee to help him arrive at a decision. But, and gifted, this is very, very important. At the end of the day, the referee makes the final decision. He can accept VAR or he can reject VAR. Most times it would appear that they are accepting it, the referees, because they can see things in a different light, slow motion, different angles, where you don't have that when you're out in the middle of the field. We didn't have that then. We didn't have it. We made a decision based on what we saw. And generally, your gut feeling is always, nearly always, correct. Now, you will get it wrong as a referee. You will make mistakes. Of course you will, because you'll be seeing the incident from a different angle. But it's your perspective. And this is also very important. And this is why I've changed the name of my show that goes out on Facebook.com on a Monday night. I used to call it the Monday Review Show, but it's what am I reviewing? So I've changed it to the ref's opinion. So the reason I'm saying that is that in the law 5, which deals with refereeing decisions and their responsibilities, there is a little line in there that says, and I'm quoting, in the opinion of the referee, end quote. So in the opinion of the referee, so it's the referee's opinion based on what he sees. May not be always correct, but he does it, he makes a decision on what he sees. And now with the issue or the introduction of VAR, now we can see it from different angles. So that should be even better to help get clarification on what actually happened or didn't happen.
Get to a point. So I was saying, so we're going to get to a point where we're going to go from having human referees to having artificial intelligence, where there's actually no referee. I would imagine at some point.
Well, Emeka, I actually said that a good few years ago. I said referees will be turning up to grounds in their suits and their ties and their briefcase. So they won't be turning up with boots and uniforms and whistles and so on. They'll be doing it from the comfort of the stand, because that's the way we're going, it appears, which I think is bad for the game, because the whole thing about debate after the game and people talking about decisions, was it the right decision, was it the wrong decision, that will always be there. But I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that sport is played by humans and therefore should be refereed by humans.
No game. Yes, the refs are meant to be. Even them maybe perhaps on occasion maybe succumbing to it on that can also that's discussion too. Like, I think that's the ability to maintain that impartiality. You argument. You have all these players with their egos and their personalities, also sounding you, screaming at you, like trying to say something. So you still holding on to that, holding on to your, this is how it has to be, mentality. That's the beauty of it.
The challenge I have with VAR is if I'm a striker and I score a goal and I want to celebrate immediately, and now with VAR I have to wait, and everyone's waiting, the referee is waiting, the fans are waiting, and then eventually the referee has to make a call. And then now the good thing is there's also the mic option where the referee goes out and actually speaks on the mic, and says, after review, I've changed my decision. It's a goal, and then everyone starts celebrating.
The thing is, though, it's very important that justice is not only done, but seen to be done, and that the correct decision is arrived at. And in the past, without VAR, some decisions were wrong, but you have to depend on the referee being decent and honest and honorable, and that he's going to make a decision to the best of his ability and based on what he has seen. Now, we have had, and I know people may be screaming when they're hearing this, but we have had referees who are found to be corrupt in the past. And in fact, South Africa was the victim of one of those, or maybe benefited. I'm not sure what happened, but it did happen a couple of years ago, where the referee was found to have taken money. And after a long investigation by FIFA, he was eventually banned, and rightly so. Any referee that is in any way corrupt or influences the result of a game, or sides, or being seen to side with one team or the other, should absolutely be banned from the game. Absolute life ban from all refereeing matters.
Absolutely. Bro, zero tolerance up to do one time, even one strikeout like this. It happened once. How many times it's when nobody was watching, nobody was really paying attention. But yeah, some of the really big controversies about this tournament, Rogers, constantly fights. Like you mentioned, we talked again, South Africa and Egypt game, penalty. And you took us through the difference between the direct and the indirect free kick. What is it genuinely still so difficult for fans? And I'm not in some raising hand and guilty, and even the players to understand and interpret those laws. Like you said, in the opinion of the referee, that's one of the laws. That's law 5, I believe. Just the laws in general, even with VAR, and what some fans that because one team got a penalty in this other incident in this other game, why should their team get a penalty or get a pass in this game with maybe a completely different? They might not be unrelated, or maybe just the two incidents might seem the same. And people will, but this team was allowed to do this. How come mine can't do this, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
You see, many people do not know the laws of the game. In fact, I bet you they couldn't even tell you how many laws there are in what they call association football. So how can they suddenly be experts on the finer points of the intricacies of the laws of the game? There are 17 laws in what they call association football in soccer. 17 laws with different little sections and subsections and subsections and so on. If you understand what I mean. But you've got to go down to the intricacies to be able to arrive at a decision. Now, referees go through strict training and quite intense training on the laws of the game and on their interpretations. And that's important. You can have a law, but how it is interpreted by the official on the day also comes into effect. But the referees attend meetings, they attend seminars, fitness tests, all of that, all behind the scenes that the general public don't see and probably don't know about. And, we were always known as the man they like to hate. That's okay, so long as that hate is verbal and not physical. And sometimes it can be physical. And I've seen referees attack. And I was assaulted in South Africa. So, and I've been threatened, and I had phone calls, and I was taken out of stadiums in the boot of a car, in the boot of a police car, several times. And so I know what it's all about. And I was assaulted down in Independence Stadium in Mthatha when it was sort of an independent homeland, as it were. So, I mean, I've been there. I've been at the brunt of all this. I know what it's like. And many times people said to me, why in heaven's name would you want to be a referee? Why would you go out there and risk all that verbal abuse, but sometimes physical abuse, for little or nothing, for a match fee that wouldn't even cover your petrol expenses? Now, so just to elaborate a little bit on that, the only good thing about refereeing is when you get on the senior panel, when you get to the elite panel of like the PSL or the A-Leagues or the Premier League, whatever, and then get to international tournaments like the World Cup and the AFCONs. But otherwise, there's none. You go out there, you sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your family in many cases, as I did in many cases. But thankfully, my wife was very understanding. But I know individuals whose marriages broke up over it because they were away refereeing matches and coming home having been abused, sometimes assaulted. Why would you do it? And this is from people who don't know the laws of the game, and quite frankly, probably are not interested in learning the laws of the game because they enjoy that little bit of banter or that little bit of shouting at the referee What enjoyment they can get out of that, I have no idea, about a man trying to do a job to the best of his ability.
I think it's
Yeah,
it's one of the things that I've seen a lot in the AFCON is a lot of fans on social media. There's no attempt at even interpreting the rules or saying, okay, yeah, I went to go and read the rules. I went to go and check. All they're saying is that this referee was wrong. He was corrupt. In fact, why would they appoint a referee from so country? Or they have this reason why they lost the game because the referee made one decision, and no attempt whatsoever to say, okay, but what exactly does the law say? Because the referee is making a decision based on the laws that he's read, he's been trained to do. Should we have training for fans?
Because you're like, instead of like introducing your child to a team, give them a rule book. That's your reading. When you teach your kids to read, give them a rule book.
When I joined the PSL as head of referees under Phillips, suggested to him that I should go around all of the clubs before the start of the season, sit for a half a day, and just sit with the players, coaches, and the management, and explain the new changes to the laws, which come in they're not regularly, but they do make changes to the laws of the game, like they're currently doing now with offside, and Arsene Wenger is suggesting that a player has to be clearly in an offside position before being flagged offside. Changes to the laws like that. And I said to Trevor, can I go around the clubs? And Trevor was the chief executive of the PSL at the time. Can I go around the clubs and sit with them, send out a letter asking them to invite me to their training session? He said, absolutely. Anything that will stop abuse of referees, go, by all means, go. So I sent out letters to I think it was then 16 clubs in the PSL. I got 4 invitations. And a lot of those invitations were from the teams in the lower half, finished the last season in the lower half of the league. Not one, and I'm not going to mention any names for fear of whatever, but I never got one invitation from the so-called top clubs. Now, why? But that's their prerogative, of course. That's their prerogative. They don't have to invite me. But I was purely trying to give a service to the clubs to explain, so that if an incident came up about offside or a new change to the law, whatever it might be, or an amendment to the law, that then they would be aware of it, and that I would be speaking from a position of knowledge, and I wanted to pass that knowledge on to them, that next time, if it's this, whatever, that is not a free kick. It used to be in the past, but it's not now.
No.
So that they would understand it.
Football is a team sport, but it's like not just the actual individual team, but just the sport itself. Everybody should be working together to make it better. So that is, disappointing, but not unsurprising here. I guess if we want to talk about like the abuse and the dangers that come with being a referee, we have to talk about the host nation when it comes to officiating in a host nation or officiating a tournament. In a game like, say, Cameroon versus Morocco, obviously being the host nation for this year, for the 2025. How does the referee, maybe you can shed light on from some of your experience as well, with FIFA and the like, how does you manage that intensity, the home crowd, the noise, the expectations, and you still have to remain composed and impartial, because now every decision that you make against the home team, that becomes what we've just discussed, that gets amplified now, because this is now the entire country against you, essentially. I mean, how do you and how the referees in general oftentimes deal with that?
Well, I was in Morocco last year with my wife on holiday in Agadir, and we enjoyed it very, very much. Referees, by their very nature, are arbitrators. I think the Spanish word for referee is arbitro. So we're arbitrators. We have 2 opposing factions, I use the word loosely, on the field of play. 11 players on either side, 10 players and a goalkeeper on either side. And we have to officiate a game on the day and the way we see it. No referee, I don't care who he is, should ever prejudge a game. You might say, well, I had this team last year and they gave me, excuse me, they gave me a bit of hassle, and so I'm going to, You must never, ever, ever do that. You're an arbitrator. You're there to decide on the day incidents that happen, regardless of who is playing, regardless of the countries involved, regardless of the competition involved, whether it's AFCONs, whether it's the UEFA, whether it's the World Cup, makes no difference. At the end of the day, you boil it all down. You have 11 players on either side competing for the ball. There are rules or laws, as we call them, governing all the procedures and behaviors of players on the field of play. And again, I repeat, it doesn't matter who is playing, the name of the player, the stature of the player, his position in world football, being a top player, etc., makes absolutely no difference. Sadly, I don't think that's always the case, because I think refereeing now has become far too politicized. And referees are saying, and some are saying, and in fact, I read a story just last week about a Spanish referee who had sent off Cristiano Ronaldo when he was playing for Real Madrid. And the next day he got a phone call from the head of the referees saying he shouldn't have sent him off, that people pay in to see him playing and see Ronaldo playing. And that's not fair to the fans who paid in to see. And I thought to myself, what a load of nonsense. In my time in South Africa, I red carded the former Manchester United and England captain, Brian Robson, because not what he did, but what he said to me. And I would not like to repeat it on air, but he literally accused me of cheating.
Sorry. Yeah, like, then you're saying that you always have to be neutral in the moment. Genuinely speaking, especially for we talked about with the Egypt and South Africa game, young, relatively newish referee. How good is that? When you have this big player in front of you, he is breaking the rules for the laws as you described them, but you gotta send them off. What advice would you actually give to the referee about that authority, that courage, that consistency? It doesn't matter who this player is. Like when he's in there, there might be additional repercussions for getting rid of this superstar, this money maker for the team or the league or competition, whatever banner you want to put under that.
My advice to referees, and I was coaching referees who went to the World Cup in South Africa. And in fact, one of them, Ahmed Salih from Cape Town, I was coaching him, and he ran the line in the 1998 World Cup final between France and Brazil. So that's probably the highlight of my career as far as coaching is concerned and mentoring and so on. But my advice to referees is, when you go out there, forget about the names of the players. They're only there if you want to take names to caution or red card them. That's it. Forget about this player is world class and this player is a superstar. Absolute nonsense. And I don't know, but I would imagine or guess that some of these players do take advantage of their standing in society, and particularly in football society, that they're using that to try and hoodwink the referee or get away with things that they shouldn't get away with. Referees should not be fooled by that kind of thing. You have 11 players, as I mentioned earlier, on either side. They're going to compete for a ball and they're going to try and score goals. And so long as they keep within the laws of the game and don't break the laws of the game, they'll be fine. If they do, then you must be there to deal with it. And don't say, oh, this is Ronaldo or this is Messi or this is whoever. Never, ever, ever say that. I remember going down to Potchefstroom one time to referee. It was Val Reefs when they were in the Premier League and Jomo Cosmos. And I was driving down and Jomo happened to pull up alongside me at the traffic lights on our way down. And he said to me, oh, Sweeney, you doing our game today? I said, yes, Jomo. Then I'm not playing Phil Masinga. I said, why not? No, he's on 4 yellow cards and I don't want him to get another one because then he's suspended and I need him for next week. I said, but Jomo, what's the problem? No, you're pretty good at giving out yellow cards. I said, Jomo, only to people who deserve them. If he doesn't deserve it and he behaves himself, he won't even know I'm there. As it happened, he brought him on in the second half. No problems. Didn't book him because he didn't deserve to be booked. And that's the issue, Gift. It's what people deserve. You're only entitled to what you deserve, nothing else. And if you don't deserve to be booked, you're not.
Right? If he behaves himself, he's supposed to be doing, you won't know him there. I love that. Like that one is perfect. I think that's fully encompassed. You know, if the player does what he's supposed to do, the referee's presence is almost not necessarily inconsequential, but you know, you don't know that you're focused on the game.
I just said if he behaves himself like any other player on the field to play, regardless of which team they're on, if they behave themselves, they won't even know I'm there. But if they don't behave themselves, I'll be there. And I'll be there with these red and yellow cards.
Brilliant. That is brilliant. I love it. But yeah, I have going back to the tournament, and you know, doesn't matter what the country's involved. A lot of teams tend to protest if the particular ref for that game is from the same region as their opponent. So if I'm, well, again, you know, if I'm Cameroon and I'm playing Morocco, and I'm just using them as a name, I'm not saying that the teams themselves are actually which teams are likely to win. I'm just saying it does tend to happen. If I'm playing someone like a Morocco or an Egypt or an Algeria, and the ref is North African, I'm going to have a problem with that. That's what happened. And so how much weight should that regional neutrality of, okay, this person is from wherever else, he has no affiliation with either side, how much weight does that carry compared to competence and experience?
It shouldn't make any difference. I mean, the referee should not only be neutral and unbiased, but be seen to be. And it doesn't matter if he's next door to a team owner or manager or coach or whatever. It shouldn't make any difference. And it shouldn't make any difference also if he's from the same country as one of the teams playing, because he's going to be fair and honest. But I know it's important to be seen to be neutral. So therefore, that's why they bring in referees from different countries. So if you have a team like, if you're Morocco playing Cameroon, for example, you might bring in somebody from South Africa or whatever, geographically well apart, to be seen to be fair. But that referee might favor one of those teams or favor a player in one of those teams. So he might then decide that he wants to favor that team. So being geographically neutral doesn't necessarily mean that the referee is going to be honest and fair. You have to depend on the referees who come into this game, if you like, to referee matches, that they're going to be fair and honest and unbiased and will not be influenced by anybody. You have to do. But you can't see into a referee's mind. You can't see how he's thinking. You can't see what he's thinking, or if he favors one team over the other. You just have to hope and pray and depend on him to be neutral and honest and unbiased.
No.
And I'm sorry, Gift, on that, it would be very easy to pick up. You could look very quickly if a referee is being unbiased or not being, if he's being biased towards one team or the other. From my point of view, from a refereeing point of view, from somebody who's been in the game all these years, you'd pick it up very, very quickly, literally right from the start, whether he was going to be fair or whether he was going to favor one side over the other.
Important. So I guess we all keep our eyes open on that front. But at the same time, you know, study the laws so that you don't, so what you're seeing is what you're actually seeing. Going back to those, we've got time for, I think, one question. So let's have a much lighter. You know, it said that you're the only referee to officiate two cup semifinals in one after stepping in when another ref's flight was delayed. That's very true. And what can you tell us about that day? Do you remember?
I do remember it very, very well. It was the Coca-Cola, it was sponsored by Coca-Cola at the time, 2 semifinals in Durban. And I was scheduled to do the second game. And Peter Martin, the late Peter, he's since passed away, from Cape Town, was to do the first semi-final. So as always, I always got to the ground in plenty of time, well before kickoff time, just in case little things crop up, and so they could be ironed out and that games could go ahead as normal. So the late Dan Laboa, who worked at the PSL and was coordinating the whole thing, he came to me. I was there about 11 o'clock, I think, and the first game was at 1:30, and he came to me and he said, listen, Peter Martin's plane hasn't arrived, it's late. Could you swap over fixtures? Could you do the first game and then let him do your game, the second game? I said, absolutely fine. But I said, listen, Dan, if there's a problem, I can do the second one as well. Now he said, what? I said, yeah, I can do the second game as well. Now, the first game went to just normal time. So there was a winner. And I was in the dressing room. I was walking into the dressing room and he says, Peter Martin's not going to arrive. And he said, we tried to contact the late Ian McLeod, who lived in Durban. His games was at Kings Park. We tried to contact Ian McLeod, see if he could come over and do it, and couldn't get a hold of him anywhere. So I said, Dan, listen, I can do the second game if you want. He said, do you think you'd be okay? I said, absolutely. I'll do the second game. And I did the second game. And you know what? The second game went to extra time and penalties. So I went on the last thing I needed. So I went on the field.
Yeah. 170, 180 minutes.
Well,
went on
no,
the
it's
field.
it's 120 plus 90.
Over 200.
That's
Yeah.
210 minutes.
Well, I went on the field at 1:00, did the games, and with breaks in between, and then the start of the second game, and breaks, and then extra time and penalties, And I came off the pitch at 6:10.
Wow.
Right.
And for
Oh,
that,
man.
Coca-Cola gave me a little radio.
Oh,
Thank you very much. And I actually still have it here.
people have it. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Incredible.
Dr. Sweeney, just thank you so much for your time and just for speaking to us today. It was just incredible to hear from you. Dad, we should catch up with him. Thanks for joining us. Your little insight for helpful as well. You were here.
Thank you very much. Always
Okay.
great to see Dr. Sweeney. Dr. Sweeney's career and just how his interpretation of refereeing, even with the modern rule changes and all that. I mean, always find it fascinates me, and that's why I like to watch his show. So if you want to keep up, Dr. Sweeney's show is on
It's on,
Facebook.
yeah. The ref's opinion,
Ref's
it's on facebook.com/hanging judge ref.
You heard that, people. Be sure to give Dr. Sweeney a like and a follow and a view.
And it goes out
And
every Monday at
Every
8
Monday.
p.m. UK time.
every Monday, 8 p.m. UK time. Swing by to the doctor, please. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We will see you all in the next one.